The case for alternative investing. What options do you have? First and foremost, what in the heck is an alternative investment? And then let's discuss what options you have. Grant, I'm going to turn that right over to you. Let's discuss and dive into alternative investing.
Absolutely. So for those of you that listen to us periodically and also get the Market Carver, you've heard this a lot recently. And what an alternative investment is, for those who are not aware, it is a way to have your money create income or appreciate in value without using our traditional stock market or bond approach. So when you hear alternatives, just think anything outside the equity or bond market. And of course, that's a very oversimplified version, but it helps us navigate the discussion. So an alternative investment is, again, what is out, which is essentially not a publicly traded stock or fixed income instrument. And so when we look at what's available to us, right, what options do we have? Well, believe it or not, back in the day, we still had alternative investments. The unfortunate part was that they just weren't available for the average investor. Right? Remember, it wasn't even until the 1940s that the average investor could buy smaller bits of the market through something called a mutual fund. And man, have we evolved from there. And so going into what's happening today, thanks to technology, artificial intelligence, and even just updates in time, we now as individual investors can invest in these options just like all of our counterparts, our friends and families and peers that have multiple millions of dollars. So again, the hurdle in the past was if you were going to use an investment or alternative, you had to have a very hefty amount of wealth to do so. And today, thanks to technology, that's changed. So what are those options? Well, we can break them down in really easy categories. One being real estate, and not necessarily physically just owning real estate personally, although you can own real estate or shares of direct real estate, like student housing, for example, office buildings. That's becoming very popular. There's also private credit. So instead of allowing a bank to really make all the money on lending practices, there are investment alternatives that allow us to invest in organizations that do debt lending. And there's a very high, nice income that comes with that. Now, there's additional risk, right? Because you're directly holding lending practice in your portfolio. And there's also my favorite, that's private equity. So believe it or not, over the last few decades, there have been fewer and fewer companies going public. Why? Well, because the large organizations are buying up the smaller ones. And thanks to regulation that made things far more transparent, we now have companies who really don't have the capital to follow that regulation, although it was a positive thing. And so they're choosing to stay private. It doesn't mean they're not making money. It's just that they don't have the necessary fiduciary money to make themselves go public. So instead of having to wait or even not be able to invest in some of those companies, we now have capital and we now have funds and other alternative tools that allow us to invest in this place. Believe it or not as well. I know I've said believe it or not a lot of times because sometimes it's hard for me even to believe, but almost, I think it was 80+%, right, Aaron, of investments that are available in our country today don't even trade on the public market. There's a lot of alternative option out there, from private credit, so you can do partnerships and private equity and real estate. And so our allocation team and advisors like us are finding really cool ways to invest these alternatives in portfolios. Now, obviously, you want to have deeper conversations with the family because there's things we have to be considerate of, like liquidity. Some of these investments you're not going to have access to for either quarters or a period of time because they lack what we call liquidity, which is easy access to cash. But for the most part, they're becoming very dominant tools in portfolios that add extra layers of diversification and potential output, which is really nice. So, Aaron, does that help answer that question? There was a lot more we can talk about, but I want to cover it from a high level.
No, Grant, that was wonderful. I mean, you hit the high level 30,000 foot view. Well done. Just remember, 2022 taught a lot of investors a lesson. You had an equity market that was down at one point 25%. I think it finished the year down 19 or 20%. And then you had a bond market because interest rates were rising. Bond prices have an inverse relationship. So as interest rates were rising, bond values were falling and the bond market was down 13 or 14%. And so you have to look at maybe restructuring things in portfolios that are not directly correlated to one another. Traditionally, stocks and bonds have not been as correlated, but they were in 2022, and it taught us a lesson to maybe say that 60-40 portfolio is not the wave of the future. And so you have to adapt and adjust. And as Grant laid out well, there are alternatives to the investment world. So if you have questions, if you want a portfolio review to see if there could be some changes or implementations inside of your portfolio to make sure you are in the right risk tolerance, and even in just making sure that the portfolio is going to meet your future needs, please reach out to us, 800-928-4001. We're happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for watching. Grant and I, as always, we're blessed to serve and do what we do for the families that we take care of, and all of you new folks that are watching that will become FEG families in the future. Have a great day.
If in our conversation today, something was sparked deep inside you and you feel like you want to evaluate your current financial journey, please click the link here. We'd love to schedule a complimentary meeting to sit down with you and navigate the potholes that may potentially be lurking around the corner in your financial situation. One of our talented team members will help you figure out where you are, figure out where you want to be, and then give you key critical things that you can think about today and tomorrow to make sure your financial journey remains intact.